The twin suns of HFY War hung low in the purple sky, casting long shadows across the crystalline forest. The light bent and refracted through millions of glass-like trees, creating a world of dancing rainbows that shifted with every breeze. It was beautiful in a way that most creatures on this world never stopped to notice. They were too busy hunting, too busy surviving, too busy climbing the endless ladder of strength and dominance that shaped everything in their world. Teo stood on a high ridge, his claws digging into the cool stone beneath him. He was young for his kind, barely past the age when he was allowed to hunt with the elders. His fur was thick and dark as the night sky, with streaks of silver that caught the light. His muscles were tight and ready, coiled like springs beneath his skin. He was fast. He was strong. He was ready to prove that he did not need anyone else. He did not need Kale anymore. The old Vex Thari had raised him since he was nothing but a small cub, teaching him the ways of the hunt, showing him how to move through the forest without being seen, how to read the wind and the tracks in the dirt. Kale was patient and careful, always holding Teo back, always saying, "Not yet," and "Too dangerous," and "You are not ready." Teo had heard these words his entire life. He was tired of hearing them. Down below the ridge, Teo could see the settlement where his pride lived. It was a collection of carved stone structures built into the side of the mountain, with doors and windows that looked out over the forest. Smoke rose from cooking fires. He could hear the distant sounds of other Vex Thari moving about, talking, working. Kale would be down there somewhere, probably in the Elder's chamber, talking about tradition and patience and the old ways. Kale did not understand that times were changing. Everything was changing, in fact. Just cycles ago, strange creatures had come to HFY War from the sky. They had ships made of metal that gleamed in the sunlight. They called themselves humans. They were small and weak, with soft skin and no claws or fangs. They could not hunt. They could not fight. They were strange and unpredictable, and most of the pride wanted nothing to do with them. But that was not Teo's concern right now. His concern was the hunt. His concern was proving himself. He turned away from the settlement and faced the forbidden depths of the forest. This was where no young hunter was supposed to go. This was where the biggest prey lived, and the most dangerous predators. This was where adult hunters sometimes did not return. Kale had told him many times never to go into the depths alone. "You will die," Kale would say, his golden eyes cold and serious. But Teo did not believe he would die. He believed he was special. He believed he was stronger than the other young hunters his age. He believed he was ready. The crystalline forest grew thicker as he moved deeper. The trees pressed close together, and the light became dimmer and more strange. The rainbows seemed to dance in different colors now, deep blues and purples and greens instead of the bright reds and yellows near the settlement. The air smelled different too. It smelled like earth and old things, like decay and death, and the scent of prey animals that had lived and died in this place for generations. Teo moved quietly through the forest, his feet making no sound on the crystal ground. His ears rotated on top of his head, picking up every small noise. A bird flying overhead, something small moving in the undergrowth, the wind moving through the trees. Everything. His senses were sharp and clear. He felt alive in a way he never felt when he was in the settlement, listening to Kale talk about the old hunts and the way things used to be. He had been hunting for several hours when he caught the scent. It was strong and rich and animal. It was the scent of a Vornim. Teo's blood quickened. A Vornim was the kind of prey that only the strongest hunters pursued. It was a creature with 6 legs and a body like moving stone, with spines that ran along its back. The spines carried venom that could kill in moments. A young hunter should not hunt alone. Also, AT-50, a young hunter should wait until he was trained properly, until he was part of a hunting group, until he had Kyle beside him, watching and ready to help. But Teo was not most young hunters. He moved forward, keeping low, keeping silent. He could see the Vornim now, moving through a clearing ahead. It was even bigger than he had imagined, easily 3 times his own size, with legs as thick as tree trunks. The creature was eating something, tearing at the carcass of a smaller animal with its powerful jaws. It did not notice Teo yet. Teo crouched behind a cluster of crystalline rocks, his heart beating fast in his chest. This was it. This was the moment that would change everything. This was the hunt that would prove to Kale, and to the entire pride, that he was ready, that he was worthy, that he did not need anyone. He prepared to strike. He gathered his muscles. He fixed his eyes on the Vornim's neck, where the venom sacs were located. If he could get there first, if he could move fast enough, he could end this quickly. He could watch the old hunter's face change from anger to pride. He could become a true hunter of the pride. Teo took a breath. He leaped. His body moved like lightning, his claws extended, his teeth bared. He was faster and more agile than the heavy Voronim. He was stronger than any young hunter had the right to be. For just a moment, everything seemed perfect. For just a moment, it seemed like his plan would work. For just a moment, he believed he was invincible. Then the Vornim's head snapped around with a speed that seemed impossible for such a large creature. Its eyes locked on him. Its venom sacs swelled. Its spines began to glow with a sickly green light. And Teo realized, with a sudden and terrible clarity, that he had made a very serious mistake. The Vornim's roar shook the forest, and in the distance, a human woman who had been watching from far away in the trees moved quietly forward. Minha had seen the young Vexthari leave the settlement at dawn. She had seen the arrogance in the way he walked, the foolishness in the direction he was traveling. She had decided to follow him, though she knew it was against protocol. She was glad she had made that choice. The cub was about to learn a harsh lesson, and Minha was not sure the lesson would stop at just pain. The Vornim moved with the speed of something much smaller and much more dangerous. It came at Teo with its 6 legs churning, its spines glowing brighter, ready to release venom that would eat through flesh like acid through water. Teo tried to move away, tried to use his superior agility, but he had been too confident. He had not planned an escape route. He had not thought about what would happen if the hunt went wrong. The creature's first spine shot past his head, missing by barely the width of a hair. Teo felt the heat of it, felt the air move as the venom passed. His confidence shattered like the crystal beneath his feet. He ran. There was no shame in running from a Vornim when you were unprepared. Shame would come later, if he lived. For now, survival was all that mattered. His legs pumped beneath him as he sprinted through the forest, weaving between the crystalline trees, trying to put distance between himself and the massive creature chasing him. The Vornim was slower, but it did not tire easily. It came on, snapping at the air, firing more spines with terrible accuracy. One spine caught Teo across his left shoulder, cutting deep into his flesh. He screamed, a sound that echoed through the forbidden depths. The venom burned like fire, like being touched by the twin suns themselves. He did not slow down. He could not slow down. Behind him, the Vornim roared again, the sound of a predator that had drawn blood and wanted more. Teo's vision began to blur. The venom was spreading through his body, making his limbs heavy and slow. His running became stumbling. His stumbling became falling. He crashed through a stand of small crystal trees and found himself at the edge of a ravine. Below was nothing but darkness and the sound of water moving far below. He could have jumped. He could have taken the chance that he would survive the fall. But the venom had made his legs weak, and he did not trust them anymore. The Vornim appeared at the edge of the clearing, its massive form blocking out the light from the twin suns. It came toward Teo slowly now, knowing that the prey was trapped, knowing that death was certain. The creature's spines had stopped glowing. It did not need to waste more venom. Teo was finished. That was when Minha threw the first rock. It came out of nowhere, traveling fast and true, hitting the Vornim on the side of its head. It had sensed the Vex Thari, but this new thing, this new threat, was unexpected. It sniffed the air, trying to understand. Before it could decide what to do, Minha threw another rock. And another. She shouted as she threw, making noise, being as loud and present as she possibly could be. The Vornim's brain was simple but functional. It understood two things: the young Vex Thari here, and this new, loud thing attacking from the side. It turned away from Teo and moved toward the sound of Minha's voice, trying to figure out where the threat was coming from. It was confused and angry, and trying to work out what was happening. Minha kept throwing and kept shouting. She threw branches and stones and anything else she could find on the ground. She ran to the side, keeping the creature's attention focused on her and not on the injured young hunter. She had studied the Vornim species for months, since arriving on Kale Vor. She knew that their eyesight was poor compared to their other senses. She knew they relied on vibration and sound to hunt. She knew that if you confused them enough, they sometimes gave up and looked for easier prey. The Vornim was getting more and more frustrated. It snapped at the air where Minha's voice came from, but could not catch anything. It fired spines randomly into the forest, hoping to hit something. The creature was strong, but it was not very smart. After several minutes of chasing sounds and finding nothing, it began to lose interest. There were easier things to hunt in this forest. With a final roar of frustration, the Vornim turned away and disappeared back into the depths of the crystalline forest. Minha waited until she was certain the creature was truly gone. Then she ran to where Teo lay on the ground. The young Vexithari's breathing was shallow and fast. His shoulder was bleeding heavily, and the venom was turning his fur dark around the wound. His golden eyes were only half open, clouded with pain, and the poison moving through his body. "Do not move," Minha said in the Vexthari language. Her accent was strange. Her words were sometimes in the wrong order. But Teo understood her meaning. She opened the small bag she carried with her, pulling out medical supplies. She had prepared for this. She had known something like this might happen. When she was studying a species as dangerous as the Vex Thari, it was important to be ready. She cleaned the wound with water from a flask, being careful not to hurt Teo more than necessary. Then, she pulled out a small container of thick blue paste. This was medicine that the Vex Thari healers used. She had created it herself by studying their methods and their knowledge of plants and healing. She spread the paste over the wound, covering the venom sac that was still slowly leaking its poison. Teo gasped as the paste touched his skin. The burning began to ease almost immediately. The blue paste was designed to neutralize venom, to stop it from spreading through the body. Minha had made it carefully, mixing ingredients that she had learned about from watching the elder healers in the settlement. She had also learned which parts of Vexthari anatomy were where, what would kill them and what would heal them. "Can you move?" she asked. Teo tried to nod but could barely move his head. "Because you needed help," Minha said simply. "Come. We need to get away from this place. There are other things in the forbidden depths that are worse than Vornim. We need shelter. We need to wait until the poison is out of your system." She helped him stand, supporting most of his weight on her own shoulders. They were very different heights. Teo was so much larger than Minha. But right now the young hunter was weak as a newborn cub. Minha half-dragged him deeper into the forest, not toward the settlement but away from it, looking for higher ground and shelter. She knew there were caves in this area. She had mapped them during her studies. If they could reach a cave before nightfall, they might survive the night. Behind them, the forest seemed to hold its breath. The crystalline trees caught the light of the twin suns, refracting it into colors that no one was watching. The forest did not care about the struggles of these two small creatures. The forest did not judge, but it had made room for them, all the same. It had let the Vornim turn away. It had let Minha find Teo at exactly the right moment. The hunt, which Teo had begun with such arrogance just hours ago, had become something very different. and Teo, who had wanted so badly to prove himself, was learning his first real lesson about what strength truly meant. The cave that Minha found was small but dry, hidden behind a curtain of hanging crystal formations that looked like frozen water. The entrance was narrow, which meant that large predators would have trouble getting inside. It was perfect for what they needed. Minha helped Teo down onto a bed of soft moss that covered the cave floor. She built a small fire using dried wood and a fire starter from her pack, filling the cave with warm light and the smell of smoke. Teo watched her move around the cave, doing small tasks with the efficiency of someone who had prepared for this exact situation many times. He wanted to be angry at her, wanted to feel insulted that he had needed saving by a small, weak human. But mostly he just felt grateful. The venom was still in his system, making him weak and dizzy. The pain in his shoulder had faded to a dull ache thanks to Minha's medicine. "I am Minha," she said, sitting down beside him and pulling more supplies from her pack. "I am here, studying your people, your species, understanding how you live and hunt and think." "You are a spy," Teo said, but without anger in his voice. "No," Minha replied. She pulled out some kind of bread and some dried meat from her pack, tearing off pieces for both of them. "I am a scientist. I want to understand. I do not want to hurt anyone or steal secrets. I just want to learn." Teo took the food and ate it. It was not how Vex Thari usually prepared meat, but he was too hungry to care. "Why did you follow me into the forbidden depths?" Minha looked at him for a long moment. "I have been in your settlement for many months now. I see things. I see how your people act. I see the young ones who are restless and think they know everything. I saw you leave this morning. I saw the way you moved. I knew you would do something dangerous. So you followed me to watch me die?" Teo asked bitterly. "No," Minha said firmly. "I followed you to make sure you did not die. I did not know what I would do. I only knew I could not let you die without trying to help." Teo thought about this for a long time. In the Vex Thari culture, strength and hunting prowess were the measure of everything. Those who could not protect themselves were weak. Those who needed help were failures. A creature who became injured or poisoned was expected to survive on their own or accept death as their due. To accept help was to accept shame, yet here Teo was, very much alive because a human woman had decided to help him. "What is your name?" Minha asked. "Teo," he said. "And you wanted to hunt alone because you thought you were ready?" "I am ready," Teo said, but the words sounded hollow even to him. His whole body ached. The wound on his shoulder throbbed with every heartbeat. He had nearly died in the first hour. Or, "I was ready. I do not know now." Minha broke off another piece of bread and handed it to him. "I will tell you about humans, if you want to hear. I will tell you how we understand strength." Teo nodded. "Humans are not as strong as Vex Thari," Minha began. "We are smaller. We are slower. We do not have claws or fangs. We cannot see as well in the dark. We are individually weaker than almost every predator on our world. But we are not helpless. We learned long ago that real strength is not about how strong one body is. Real strength is about thinking, about planning, about working together. Working together is for the weak," Teo said. "The hunters of the pride who are strongest hunt alone. They do not need others." "Do they?" Minha asked. "Think about it. When do your strongest hunters become old and weak? When do they stop hunting? If they are truly only about individual strength, what happens when that individual is no longer strong enough?" Teo had no answer. It was true that even the strongest hunters eventually became too old to hunt alone. When that happened, they either fought against other hunters to prove they were still strong enough to lead, or they accepted a lower position in the pride. Some of the oldest hunters died in these fights. Others lived but with new scars and new respect earned through continued dominance. In human society, Minha continued, the old teach the young learn and get stronger. Eventually the young become old, and they teach others. There is no shame in this. Everyone accepts it as the way things work. When someone gets old, they are still honored for what they know and what they have experienced, not thrown away because they are not strong enough to fight anymore. That sounds like a weakness, Teo said, but he was listening carefully. We thought so too at first, Minha said. But we learned that it is not. A species that honors its elders and shares knowledge survives better than a species where each individual is only for themselves. A species that works together creates stronger tools and better plans. A single human might be easy to kill, but a group of humans hunting together can bring down a creature much larger and stronger than any one of us alone. She reached over and carefully unwrapped the bandage on his shoulder, checking the wound. The blue paste was doing its work. The venom had stopped spreading. The bleeding had mostly stopped. It was beginning to heal. She applied fresh paste and rewrapped it carefully. You could have let me die, Teo said quietly. It would have been no loss to humans. It might have even helped your people to have one fewer Vexthari. I could have, Minha agreed. But that would have made me the kind of person I do not want to be. I came to Kale Vor to understand, not to harm. If I killed you or let you die when I could have saved you, I would be proving that humans are just as dangerous and cruel as some of your people think we are. I would be proving that we should not be trusted. Teo looked at this small woman who had risked her own life to save him, a young Vexathari she had never met before, and something shifted in his mind. Something fundamental changed about the way he understood the world. What will happen when we go back to the settlement? He asked. I do not know, Minha said honestly. Your people have been uncertain about mine since we arrived. They might see me as a hero for saving you. They might see me as a threat. They might want to drive me away or worse. I took a chance when I followed you into the forbidden depths. I did not know how it would end. I think, Teo said slowly, that I have been wrong about many things. I think I did not understand what strength really is. Minha smiled. Then you have learned something today that took humans thousands of years to learn. You are faster than we are at understanding. It seems. Outside the cave, the twin suns were setting, casting the crystalline forest in shades of deep purple and blue. The forest seemed very large and very old, and in it, two creatures from different worlds were beginning to understand each other. Neither of them knew it yet, but they were about to change everything. Teo and Minha stayed in the cave through the night. They did not sleep much. Teo was healing but still weak, and his body needed time to process the venom and rebuild its strength. Minha sat near the fire, adding small pieces of wood to keep it burning steadily. They talked through most of the darkness, Teo asking questions and Minha answering them, slowly building a bridge of understanding between two species that had just recently learned the other existed. In the hours before dawn, Teo asked a question that seemed to worry him deeply. What will happen to you when we return? Kale is the strongest of our elders. If he decides you are a threat, he will try to drive you away or kill you. That is how things work with my people. Strength decides everything. Then I will have to prove that I am useful, Minha said. I will have to show that understanding is stronger than attack. I will have to show that cooperation is better than conflict. I do not know if my people will listen, Teo said. Neither do I, Minha admitted. But I do know that you will listen. And if I can show even one young Vexthari that there is a better way, perhaps that is enough for now. When the twin suns rose and filled the cave with light, Teo was able to stand on his own. His shoulder was still sore and bandaged, and he would bear a scar from this day forward. But he was strong enough to move. Minha carefully packed her supplies while Teo tried moving around the cave, testing his legs, his arms, his balance. We should not go straight back to the settlement, Minha said. We should wait until you are stronger, and we should move carefully. There are other things in the forbidden depths besides Vornim. What things? Teo asked. Come, Minha said. I will show you. They left the cave and began walking deeper into the forest. Not fleeing toward home, but going forward into the unknown. Teo was uncertain about this, but he found himself trusting this human woman in a way that felt strange and new. They walked for several hours, moving slowly because of his injury, and Minha pointed out things to him. Trees that were more than 1,000 years old, creatures that hunted at night and slept during the day. A pool of clear water that was so deep no one had ever found the bottom. And then, as afternoon began to turn into evening, the forest went quiet. Not the normal quiet of the forest settling into sleep. A different kind of quiet. An absence of sound so complete that it was almost painful. The birds stopped singing. The insects stopped buzzing. Even the wind seemed to stop moving through the crystal trees. Teo felt his instincts kick in. Something was wrong. Something dangerous was near. Minha grabbed his arm and pulled him down behind a cluster of large rocks. She put her finger to her lips, indicating silence, and they crouched there, in the growing darkness. Teo could smell something now, something ancient and wrong. It smelled like old earth and death and time itself. Then it came. The Threxmore emerged from between two of the massive crystal trees, like a shadow given form. It was huge, perhaps 20 feet long, with a body that seemed to shimmer and shift in the fading light. It had too many limbs and not enough eyes. And the way it moved was wrong, in a way that made Teo's brain hurt to watch. This was a creature that should not exist. This was something that belonged to older times, times before even the oldest memories of the Vexetheri. Teo felt Minha's fingers dig into his arm. She was afraid. He could feel it in the way her whole body had gone rigid. They were trapped in a place with no good escape route. And ahead of them was a creature that could kill them both with barely any effort. The Threxmore moved through the forest slowly, seeming to search for something. It would stop occasionally and press one of its strange appendages against a tree or the ground, feeling for vibrations, for heat, for signs of prey. It was hunting, Teo realized. The creature had grown hungry, and it was searching for food. The Threxmore came closer and closer to their hiding place. Teo could feel his heart pounding in his chest. Every instinct told him to run, to fight, to do something other than sit here, frozen. But Minha's grip on his arm was firm, and her other hand moved to something on her belt. She pulled out a small object that Teo did not recognize. The Threxmore was only a few body lengths away now. Its strange geometry made it difficult to look at directly. Teo could see that it was very old, that it had scars covering its body from old battles with other creatures, or perhaps other Threxmore. It was starving. He could see that now. The creature was thin beneath its strange skin, and it moved with the desperation of something that had not eaten in a very long time. Minha leaned closer to Teo and whispered so quietly that he almost could not hear her. "It is not evil," she whispered. "It is only desperate." Teo wanted to say no. He did not understand. He did not understand how someone could look at this thing and see anything but a threat. But he was beginning to understand that Minha saw the world in a different way than he did. She saw not what was dangerous, but why it was dangerous. She saw the story behind the threat. The Threxmore turned, and one of its appendages pointed directly at their hiding spot. It had sensed them. It knew they were there. It began to move toward them, and Teo felt Minha stand up. What happened next would change everything. Minha held up her hands, showing she was not a threat, and she began to make noise. Not in fear, but in understanding. She began to make sounds that matched something in the creature's movements, something in the pattern of its searching. She was communicating. She was trying to speak to the Threxmore in a language that had nothing to do with words. Teo watched, stunned, as the ancient creature began to respond. It turned slowly, and instead of attacking, it began to move back the way it had come. The forest silence continued, but now it felt different. Not threatening, but thoughtful. The twin suns sank lower, and in the growing darkness, Teo realized that Minha had just done something he would have thought impossible. She had spoken to a creature that predated his entire species and convinced it to let them live. The Threxmore disappeared back into the depths of the forest, fading like a nightmare at dawn. For a long time after it was gone, Teo and Minha stood frozen in the fading light, hardly daring to breathe. When Minha finally lowered her arms, her hands were shaking. That was, Teo began, but he had no words for what he had just witnessed. The only way that would work, Minha said quietly. Understanding. No violence. Just understanding. They made their way back to the settlement in the darkness, moving carefully through the crystal forest. Teo was healing, but still not fully strong, so their progress was slow. By the time the settlement's lights came into view, the twin suns had long since set, and night covered the world in deep purple shadows. Guards spotted them approaching and sounded an alarm. Hunters came running from the settlement, weapons drawn, moving to protect their home from what they believed was a threat. Minha and Teo walked forward slowly, hands raised, showing they meant no harm. The hunters moved forward to meet them, their eyes hard and cold. Teo recognized them all. They were good hunters, strong hunters. But they were also afraid. They were afraid of a human woman walking with a young hunter who had been missing for almost 2 full days. "Stand back," one of the hunters called. "We do not know what you have done to our youth, stranger. We do not know what you want." Then Kael stepped forward. The old hunter was tall and broad, with gray streaking his dark fur. He had been a great hunter in his younger days, and he still carried himself with the weight of his experience and authority. His golden eyes fixed on Teo, and Teo saw something there that surprised him. Beneath the anger and the disappointment, there was fear. Kael had been afraid that his young charge would die. "Teo," Kael said, his voice heavy with emotion. "What happened? Where have you been?" Teo stepped forward, and as he did, the pain in his shoulder reminded him of everything that had occurred. "I went into the forbidden depths," he said, and he watched as Kael's face hardened. "I thought I was ready to hunt alone. I was wrong." He told them the story. He told them about the Vornim and how Minha had saved him. He told them about the cave and the conversations they had there through the night. He told them about the Threxmore and how Minha had used understanding instead of violence to survive. Some of the hunters laughed or made sounds of disbelief. Some of them looked thoughtful. But Kael listened to every word without interrupting, his old eyes studying both the young hunter and the human woman. "You are saying," Kael said slowly, "that this human saved your life. Not once, but twice." "3 times, Minha said quietly. "Once from the Vornim. Once when I stopped him from making more mistakes in his fever. Once from the Threxmore." "Silence!" one of the other hunters shouted. "We did not ask you to speak." But Kael raised his hand, and the other hunter went quiet. "I want to hear what she has to say." Minha looked at Kael. Teo came to the forest believing that strength meant hunting alone, that needing help meant failure. I showed him that this is not always true. In my people, the greatest hunters are those who work with others, who share knowledge, who use thinking and planning along with strength. Teo's strength almost got him killed. My understanding saved him. Together, we survived something that either of us alone would not have survived. The settlement was quiet. The assembled hunters looked at each other, uncertain. This was new ground. This was not something their culture had any clear answer for. Kael studied Minha for a long moment. Then he did something remarkable. The old hunter bowed his head slightly, an acknowledgement of respect among Vexithari, a gesture that said, "I see you as worthy." "Come," Kael said to Minha. "We will take you to our healers, so they can check Teo's wound. Then we will talk more about these ideas of yours. Perhaps it is time our people learned something new." Over the following days, Teo recovered fully from his injuries. The scar on his shoulder became a badge of his experience. Not something to hide, but something to honor. He spent much of his healing time with Minha, listening to her stories of humans and their history, learning about how his species and humans might work together. The Pride discussed the events at length. There was resistance, of course. Many of the older hunters believed that the old ways were the right ways. But something had shifted. Teo became a bridge between the two peoples. A young Vexathari who had learned from a human and lived to tell about it. The seed of change had been planted. One afternoon, as Teo stood on the ridge above the settlement, watching the twin suns cast their light through the crystal forest, Minha joined him. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "I am thinking about how stupid I was," Teo said. "I thought I was ready because I was strong. I thought strength meant I could do anything. I did not understand that the things we do not know can kill us faster than any predator." "That is wisdom," Minha said. "That is more valuable than any amount of strength. Kale has told me that I will be the one to work with your people," Teo said. "He says I understand you now. He says I can help bridge the distance between our species." "How do you feel about that?" Minha asked. Teo thought about it. "I feel like maybe my foolish hunt was not a failure. I feel like maybe it led somewhere better than anything I could have imagined." The forest stretched out before them, beautiful and vast and full of mysteries. The crystal trees caught the light and threw it back in 1,000 different colors. The forest had room for both species now. The forest had decided that they belonged here together. And in the settlement below, other young Vexthari were beginning to watch Teo and Minha, beginning to wonder if perhaps there was a different way to understand what strength really meant.